All right, bang, bang. Today is Tuesday. It's May 24th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. It's Eddie. It's Chief. Chief, how are we doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing great. Big Memorial Day weekend on the horizon. I'm excited for it. You excited? You got a little trip going, huh?
Yeah. Across the pond. Going to London for like the first real time. I've never spent any time in London. So.
What's not real time then? 24 hours? A flight? The layover?
Layover. I've been in the airport. So like technically I've been in the airport.
Yeah, that don't count.
That does not count.
That's an interesting conversation.
I think they stamp your passport for that though.
Oh, do they?
I think.
That's a bullshit stamp.
I think so too.
Cross it out.
Yeah. All right. Is that legal?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a good question though. What quantify? Like, I don't think if you drive past the state, I don't think that's, unless if you.
I got a question for you.
What?
I wanted you to know if you think this is crazy. So I have a friend, he lives in Chicago, and he has some kind of job. He's dating a girl who's a teacher. And so she has a summer off, and he has a job. He's a very successful guy. He's kind of a mystery to me, though. Like, I don't know exactly what he does, but he's successful. He's going to Mexico for a month. I think he's going to Puerto Vallarta. Like, that's on the West Coast, right?
Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah.
I think it's on Cabo's on the west. I know.
Okay.
Cancun's Cancun's on the
Cancun's on the Gulf side for sure. Anyways, he's got.
You could be right. I know Cabo.
I'm pulling it up.
And I know Playa del Carmen, and I know fucking Maya Riviera. Riviera Maya is on the east. The one I don't know is Puerto Vallarta.
It is on the west. Okay. And it's just like a little bit north. Latitude wise of Mexico City. So it's like far. He's driving from Chicago to Puerto Vallarta so he and his girlfriend can bring their dogs. It's a 30-hour drive, and like you have to go through like Sinaloa and like all these areas where it's like fucking bad. And he's just like, well, we want to bring the dogs, so we're just gonna make it. It's a 30-hour road trip. And it's like, we're gonna stop in like Guadalajara and Austin, and I don't know. I don't think I would do that.
This is where I wish I could comment, but I can't, because if I comment, then I'm just a fucking guy who wants all dogs to die. So, I'll just say good for them. Sounds nice.
Leave the dogs out of the equation. Would you drive through Mexico or a foreign country like that? Knowing what's in the news. I think I would be nervous to do that. No,
because it's tough though, man.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I mean, people could say the same shit about Chicago about what they see in the news, right? They certainly can.
They certainly can. And this is like my ugly American, like you just see what's in the news. You're like, oh shit. I'm like, but you hear about like that Mormon family from a few years ago got like, had all sorts of trouble.
I think the difference is people who live in Mexico and are from Mexico will tell you the same.
Yeah.
That's maybe the difference. Like obviously if you live here, you'll be like, there's definitely tough parts and there's tough things going on, but generally, if you drive through it, you'll be okay.
My like dream vacation is to go to like Machu Picchu and then drive down the Chilean coast down to Patagonia, because they like just stop at all like the little wineries. That to me seems like fine. Going through Mexico, a little scary.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
who knows? But regardless, it's an interesting move.
It's an interesting move. I'm like half jealous and like half be like, call me when you get there.
Yeah.
like, make sure you're fine.
It's an adventure, so I'm pro adventure, so good for them. It'd be interesting to hear how it goes.
Yep.
Before we continue, though, while we're talking about Mexico vacations, we're talking about Memorial Day weekend. We're going to talk about Roman swipes.
Ooh, need that.
The secret to longer lasting sex. If you're packing for your trip, if you're packing for your weekend getaway, make sure you throw these in the suitcase.
And they're so discreet. Packages are like, fits in your wallet. You can stuff that in any pocket in your suitcase.
Yeah, and vacation bagging is a little different,
Big time.
So you're gonna want to put on a good performance. So
defile that room and use Roman to do so.
Exactly. Roman swipes, clinically proven way to last longer in bed. They're effective, easy to use, and fast acting, but they don't require a prescription. Roman can ship swipes to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipe packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry. You're good to go. That's it. Go to GetRoman.com/dogwalk to get $10 off when you choose a monthly plan. That's GetRoman.com/dogwalk. One more time, GetRoman.com/dogwalk. Start doing better in the bedroom today. All right, so all the 30-hour trips aside, we do have a pretty serious topic today.
Very serious. Yeah. So this is, if you've been, I think this is a story that I don't know. I don't really watch the news anymore. I kind of just glance at headlines. I don't know if this would have come on my radar because I don't have any infant children, but there is a national, and it is just national, but a national baby formula shortage that has been going on for months and months and months, and just recently started getting more attention to the point that the government actually has taken some positive steps to help solve this big problem. But it's also like, man, like how the fuck did we get to that point in the first place? Where like we're this modern nation, wealthiest country that ever lived, and we're just told like, hey, like this type of stuff like just does not happen in America. Like there's not food shortages and like that stuff you hear about in like Albania and these other places where it's like they're former Soviet states, not us. And it's hitting the home for these new parents, to the point that they said that on April 24th, 40% of the supply for baby food or baby formula was missing. So 40%, so almost half of what is normally available for the population, just not on the shelves. Sold out. Every major retailer had to take actions against, they didn't allow stockpiling. So it's like, hey, you're allowed one, kind of like at COVID where it's like you can buy one package of toilet paper, one thing of paper towels, like same thing for baby formula. And it was like escalating throughout 2022. So I think in March it was like 29%, and then it got up to 40% at the end of April. And it started being widely reported probably around May 9th. But like there's all like craziness. Like mothers are like, swapping breast milk, and there's just so many women who can't necessarily produce enough breast milk on their own to keep their baby healthy. So they need this formula, and it's just like I have no idea where I'm going to get that formula. Amazon was backed up for it was a 2-month wait to get if you order it on Amazon, and same thing with all the other retail. You go to Costco, sold out. Everybody's sold out everywhere, and it's like what the fuck, and how do you stop that? So, and it's like it all goes back to there's this company called Abbott Nutrition, and Abbott Nutrition. They're like one of the leading producers of baby formula, and they have a contract with the government, an exclusive contract with the government for this program called WIC. It's another thing where it's like I'm fortunate enough that I hadn't heard of that, but WIC it stands for Women's Infant and Children, and it sounds like it's effectively a food stamp type program where they will supply you with the ability to obtain formula, whatever, but they call it supplemental nutrition on their website. So if you're a little food scarce and you're not, you have to qualify based on your income. So if you're a single mother, so now it's like, okay, so who's really being affected by this the most? Because the WIC program, if you have WIC, okay, you can't just go in and be like, oh, I want this brand or that brand. No, like you can only get this, what they give you. Mm-hmm. And they say the majority of the women in the WIC program are these single women who are, they're struggling anyways. And baby formula is expensive. They say that in the first year of your child's life, parents spend between $1,200 and $1,500 on baby formula. It's like a big expense, like one of those baked in things. And nobody talks about how expensive kids are. It's like just the formula the first year is $1,500. So if you're only making X amount a year, and it's like, that's really tough. And then it's like the prices are going up like everything else is with inflation. And then it's like, you can't even get it, even if you wanted to pay for it. So it's like, so if you have money, you can't get it. If you're on this WIC program where you have access to it, but it's only through Abbott, you're just fucked because they had to do a massive, massive recall because they killed 2 babies. So this was, I think this was like maybe 5-6 months ago, but they had a massive product recall, and it basically started with a whistleblower where you had 4 babies were hospitalized and 2 of those babies ended up dying. Like, I can't imagine just giving your baby formula next, fever, something's going wrong, take it to the hospital, dead. Like, you're a little infant baby. Unbelievable. So the FDA and the CDC get involved, and they start investigating Abbott based upon these deaths, and then this whistleblower, and they find out that Abbott's factory for production has like leaky pipes. They have these issues with, I guess, baby formula, the way it's made, it has to go into this dryer where you're taking out all the moisture, as you would imagine, through these dryers. And the dryers were, old, outdated, not functioning properly. And they were just like, no, we're not, like, we don't need to fix those. Those are fine. They're fine. It's not like Abbott's a small company either, okay? So it got to the point where they're like, hey, like, you're shut down. The factory is shut down by the FDA, and you have to recall all this product so we don't have any more, sick and dead infants. And hadn't come back online yet, which was a big part of this problem since they're a major supplier. And it's like, you find out that Abbott recently did a $5.7 billion stock buyback. They have plenty of fucking money to update their factories, keep their clients and these infant children safe. Fuck it. We'd rather do something better for our shareholders and ourselves, is do this massive stock buyback, which causes the shareholders who own the stock, that, like, if you have preferred stock, or you're the CEO, or you're some executive there, or you're a banker at Morgan Stanley, hey, we're investing heavily, everybody who's holding, their shares go up. So it's like, hey, you did this great thing for the shareholders. It's $5.7 billion of a stock buyback, but yeah, fuck the equipment and fuck those children. So they're just like cutting corners, being like shady. Like, all they care about is the bottom line. So we're not going to fix the fundamental equipment to keep our products safe. But as long as our stock goes up, we don't give a shit. And this is the company that has this crazy exclusive deal with the government through the WIC program, who they just don't care. So this has been going on. This shortage, like I said, for months. And we talked about doing this show last week. I'm glad we didn't, because last week, because now it had become like, Jen Psaki is the redhead who just left, press secretary. She, just started getting questions about this probably in the middle of May. And they're like, yeah, like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is a problem, but didn't have any concrete answers. Last week, Biden released a video saying we're taking basically two steps here. We're going to invoke the Defense Production Act, which is, I don't know how old that act is, but this is like a thing where it's like, hey, Boeing in World War II, you're making these commercial planes or whatever. Nah, you're making bombers now. And to these specific, like, we'll pay for it, but we're making bombers now to these specific specifications. Hey, Ford, you're no longer making, trucks, you're making tanks. And that's how that Defense Production Act is. So they have these other facilities and other companies who might make some other product where the government can come in and say, well, you were making, I'm making it up, but you're making protein powder for muscle milk or whatever. You're going to switch your ingredients and you're making baby formula now. So that's kind of how that works. And then the other thing is they're using, there's a big demand already for European and other places, but mostly European baby formula that's out there and readily available. It's not legal here in the United States because you got to jump through all these hoops and work, because Abbott has it, but it's not FDA approved because in America we use more plant-based stuff for our baby formula, where over there they use a lot of goat milk and other like kind of more natural ingredients. But for whatever reason, Abbott had their stuff approved, even though it was worse for babies, and they're doing these stock buybacks while their factories are falling apart and killing people over Europe. So now they had like a black market for that, where moms were like importing it, and now the government has said, okay, well, like, because things are so dire, we're going to go over there as long as they meet our guidelines. We'll import massive and basically just give it away. So we're gonna go over to Europe, load up, cargo planes, fly the shit back over here, and disperse it throughout the country. And there are certain states, for whatever reason, have it worse. I think it's Texas, Tennessee, maybe one of the Dakotas, something like that, where there's just nothing on the shelf. So I don't know if they're getting priority or what, but this has been it's a nationwide problem. And now, so they're importing European baby formula and increasing production outside of Abbott Labs here, so just so people just can feed their children. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, man.
Yeah, it sounds like the old Abbott and the old Boeing shareholders just got their feet up in the sun right now.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like our old Boeing episode. Yep. Yeah, so where it's like, hey, like, we just want to, all we care about is the bottom line. And we don't care about doing things the right way. And no one's holding us accountable, including the government. And why the government, now, the government says like they enter into this exclusive deal through the WIC program with Abbott, because then Abbott, locks them in at a certain price. That makes sense. But if you're locked in at that price, then you still have no competition. It seems like they would be better off being like, hey, you're the 4 or 5 leading manufacturers. We'll take quotes from all of you, and we're not giving anybody exclusivity, and we'll just perpetually have like a price war to keep prices down between these 4, because we're going to have a massive order because it's for everyone in the WIC program. So why would you ever allow Abbott to have an exclusive deal? Kind of seems strange to me to begin with. But then it's like they were clearly, I would hope, in breach of contract, because they're A, not producing safe formula, and B, they can't meet the demand. So it's because of the recall and a few other reasons. So it's like, but they have an exclusive contract. So it's like you should just rip that contract up and try to reformulate it. It's not a pun, but like redo the deal where it's better for your end user, which is your citizens. So if you're doing a deal with the government, like your customer, your clients are the citizens of the United States. And it's just like Abbott didn't live up to their end of the deal. The government didn't end up to live up to their end of the deal. And the result is that you have mothers all over this country and new parents freaking out about how the fuck where are we going to get our next meal from for our baby? And it's not the same as having, I went to the grocery store the other day and I went to that Paulina meat market. They're charging $42 for a ribeye. It's like, that's fucking insane because prices are out of control. But it's like, I guess I'll eat, something else.
Yeah, they're not out of this type of yogurt.
Right, exactly.
It's a fucking necessity.
It's the only thing.
Not a preference.
And they say the other thing is, okay, so there are certain, some babies are able to like just whatever, eat whatever. And other ones have very specific dietary needs. They might be allergic to a specific ingredient. They might hit, and it's like if your baby falls into that category where they need a specific type, you are completely fucked. And then it's like you go on different websites. You have a lot of people trying to like figure out like, how do I make this myself? How do I just get my breast to produce more milk? There are Facebook groups, like I said earlier, of moms like sharing like in the community. Like, have you ever heard of a wet nurse? Okay, so a wet nurse back in the day would be like, because women will, I think this is correct, will produce breast milk as long as there's an infant like around and they're like perpetually using it for like years. Okay, so even if you're not, let's say you have like a 7-year-old who's not using your milk, but if you were a wet nurse, meaning like you worked in the house for some royal lady or something like that, you would continue to nurse your boss's baby. That was like one of your jobs. And so like that's kind of effectively what's happening is because there's such a shortage of milk, is that moms are just like lactating and pumping and just like sharing it in their community because they don't have any other options. So they're all kind of like pooling their own breast milk together to make sure that the infants in their like immediate community don't starve. And this is all sorts of long-term ramifications for like cognitive development. You could have all sorts of health ramifications from being malnourished as a child, as an infant. Like this is like your hyper growth phase for your brain. And if you're not getting enough nutrients, that's a big problem. And, and I remember my sister, when she had her first baby, that kid, he's 6 now. He's the best. But like he just had a scowl on his face all the time. Scowl. And she was just like, she was doing everything by the book. And my mom would be like, I don't think you're feeding him enough, because my mom's like been through the wars with the baby. So like, I just remember my sister being like exhausted and miserable and like not knowing what to do. I can't get this fucking kid to stop crying. I gave him all the food. I did what the book said. And, so I can just picture these moms getting no sleep, emotionally, mentally drained from having this infant that they're trying to care for, but can't because they don't have access to the one thing they need more than anything, which is food.
Yep.
So it's really, really fucked up.
Yeah. And then you have the hoarders and whatnot selling it for a shit ton on
there's some of that
eBay and whatnot.
There is some of that, but the retailers have really, for months now, have been like cracking down, like rationing. Like you're allowed 1 container. Yeah. You're not allowed to just come in and buy 6.
Mm-hmm. Because I saw on Jerry's story the other day, he's like, hey, I can't find it if any of my followers know where I can get it. Yeah, it's fucking serious.
Very serious, yeah. So hopefully with this, it's not easy to ramp up production, so no. It's not like you can't, like Abbott had these issues with their facilities that caused these deaths. But it's not like even if they came back online, they'd be able to ramp up to meet demand. And then, same thing with the Defense Production Act. Like you can do it somewhat quickly, but it's not like, there's still like supply chain, and there's, so you still have to have the ingredients, you still have to convert the facility, you still have to ship it. So it's like, they did this last week and that's great, but I'm sure people on the street aren't really seeing the results of those programs yet. I don't know how much has been imported from Europe or anywhere else yet, but it's like this is still like a very real ongoing problem, even though they've announced, sounds like good, legitimate, concrete measures to address it.
And it's just such an urgent thing too. Like this, it reminds me of when all these, like, remember when a lot of liquor companies like pivoted to making hand sanitizer during COVID? Mm-hmm. But that's like, all right, wash your hands with bar soap. Right. This is like, hey, there ain't many alternatives.
There's not. Like, what do you do?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like, so it's like, can I give my infant, because there's like, you graduate, right, based upon your nutritional needs. So like there is still like a toddler level of a formula for, I think if for your like 18 months to 2 years old or something like that, as you're integrating solid food and you're still like supplementing with, it's like, you're really not supposed to give your infant that. Well, can I give it cow milk? No, they don't have the, like, even like adults, I guess, like.
You don't really process milk.
Yeah. Like
there's
some kind of enzyme in there that you just really can't break down the right way. They say goat milk is actually much better for you.
Really?
For whatever reason.
I feel like, Europe's ahead, right?
I think that Europe, in terms of this stuff, they're less corrupted.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I guarantee you, shouldn't say that, but I would be suspicious about this
deal,
this Abbott Lab deal.
My head went there too, but I don't want to turn it into that kind of thing. But
it seems like if you always just follow the money. Yeah. So who secured that deal for WIC, and what executive at Abbott made a hefty campaign donation to whatever congressman or senator signed that off?
It's pretty crazy too, dude, because when we started the show, I was going to cut you off and was like, wait, let me guess. It's COVID and it's the war in Ukraine. And that's what, I was convinced that's what you were going to come back with, and that's why there's a shortage. But
it's all domestic.
For it to be a situation where it's just negligence is tough.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Negligence on the part of the company, and it's like the government with their thumb up their ass for months, because people have been complaining. It just hasn't been in the news. So, if we had in February, you would think like a 20%. I think it was March, it was up to 29. So now it's May what? So it's at least been 2 months where it's like, we're having like major issues here for at least 2 months. And so it's like, I don't know, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, this is a major issue. And it wasn't until like the media started pressuring Jen Psaki and the government in like a very public mainstream way that they did something. It's like, they don't really fucking care. And there was one congresswoman from Iowa who was like, has been banging the table being like, we need to do this Defense Production Act, like invoke that like now. Like she's been saying that for a while. Deaf ears, like I don't give a fuck. So it's like we do have, you know, like I said, there's like a demand in this black market for the European baby food. To your point, like, are they just ahead of us? It's like, no, it's like it's almost like on a time frame, like they're almost like backwards, but it's like we add chemicals to everything. Everything is processed.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And like just knowing that the physical fitness over there is better, and I don't know how that affects.
Well, yeah. So like, you know, you always hear over here like gluten so bad for you, right? Like breads, pasta, like don't eat that pizza. Over there, especially in Italy and these other places, it's a little bit different. And so they have a way of storing and processing their wheat that is healthier. So we have this thing where we dry it out, bleach it, and if you could have like a silo of wheat, okay, even they're like, you don't even need pest control because the bugs won't even eat it. It's just fucking paste. There's no nutritional value. Over there, it effectively like ferments, and there's like this casing around in the wheat that kind of breaks down naturally in the storing process. And once that's broken down, it's easier to get nutrients out of the wheat and into your body, and it's not as like toxic the way that gluten is, causing all these inflammation and this thing called leaky gut, which literally like your gut just kind of like has like these little microscopic slivers in it caused by eating gluten. It just leaks all these like toxins and things into your body that make you sick and cause inflammation. Over there, they don't have it as much because they still do things kind of the old way, and it's better for you. So, you know, it's like goes back to like the fucking, you know, Jesus, like give us this day our daily bread. Well, it's because it wasn't fucking Wonder Bread. It was like everything back in the day was really kind of tastes more like a sourdough, supposedly, because it literally turns sour because of the way it's manufactured and fermented and all these things. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
All right. Hopefully it those changes, and hopefully everything gets back to normal soon.
Yeah. So people like Jerry and, you know, Will Compton has a new baby that, you know, this is like it's one of those things where you just like, it's stressful enough to try and like keep this fucking baby alive when they're screaming, crying up in the middle of the night. Imagine they're up for a 4 a.m. feeding. You just don't have any food.
Yeah.
So
it's fucked up.
Very fucked up.
But all right then, Chief. Thank you. Thank you everybody for listening. That's it for today. We'll catch you all tomorrow.